So, hi Vasu,
Hi.
really glad to have you on Next Academy podcast.
Thank
So
you.
pleasure having you, and really appreciate the time that you've given to
Pleasure.
us.
Pleasure.
We've talked a lot before, and I know pretty much about you. But just for an intro, I think like if you could just drop a short introduction about yourself.
Yeah, so what's the best way of putting it? I'm a automobile dreamer turned mechanical engineer turned industrial designer turned UX designer. I've been working for about 10 plus years now, and I've changed a lot of career graphs.
Right.
So yeah, my background has been across startups, design firms, IT companies, product and service companies. So I mean, yeah, I've seen my fair share of work, and that's probably the best introduction I can give because that sums up whatever I'm doing now. I don't think there's anything else that adds to it.
And absolutely, like interestingly, most of the designers that I've met have been either graphic designers or multimedia artists or computer scientists. But you actually turned from mechanical engineering to design and then UI UX, and that's a nice journey and interesting journey. Like, how did that happen?
It's fun. So I mean, I think I was in class 10 or 11 probably when I had this whole fascination with cars, like most boys probably do. I don't know about today, but yeah, 90s they did. So I wanted to build the best looking, fastest maybe, or like the most swanky car in the world. That was the dream, which took me through mechanical engineering, because design, I think, till very late, design was this concept unheard of. Like, and even today, I mean, if you go out in India, especially, I don't want to talk about the Delhis and Bombays, but by and large, design is still interior design or fashion design. And that was the notion back then. So mechanical engineering became the obvious choice then. While studying engineering, I realized that I could not do what it takes. Thermodynamics still haunts me. And then I realized that, okay, design is what I'm looking at, not engineering. So it's not building the fastest car, it's, how it looks. Which then took me to industrial, so transport design actually, not even industrial on the whole. From there, it became a little more generic. So why just transport? Like why not industrial design on the whole? So that it's not just a car, but also something that goes inside, or an accessory, or something which has something to do with the brand of an automobile. That happened, and that was my transformation. And then once industrial design happened, it became more like an organic growth as to where the world was going. I think mobile and digital started happening in early late 2000s, which is when I was also graduating. So in the first 2-3 years of my career, while I was working as an industrial designer, there were also a lot of ongoing projects for mobile apps.
Got it. Yeah, so you started with this like a design service agency, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, design studio, design consulting,
design consulting.
In Pune.
Okay.
Right. And again, because it was a consulting, it was a studio setup. The requirements, or the asks which came in could be very varied. There was not a particular
absolutely,
domain.
that happens.
So that's when mobile applications and I still wouldn't say software per se.
Because I think like Android actually came in 2012, post like iOS actually when Steve Jobs launched iPhones in 2008, and the app marketplace started booming when you actually graduated out of
about that time.
It was 2012, 13. And, that was actually the onset when Android started.
Correct. And what was happening was a lot of clients which we were working for back then, who were industrial design, product clients, were also dabbling to get into space as a service. So, I remember we were working for one of these schooling consulting firms in India, HVAC companies. And amidst building all those, air conditioners and water coolers and appliances, which is basically what I would do as an industrial designer, they came to the founders of our studio, and they said that, look, we have this. What we want to do is we have this idea of building a mobile app which could serve as an online catalog for our products. So something which was very basically happening on websites already, but okay, let's make a native app on iOS or Android. So that was my first experience or my first opportunity to even learn what a mobile application is. That happened, and then again, from there I moved to my next stint at Sapient, which was again an innovation lab. So I went in because the lab needed somebody with an industry design background to sort of create models and POCs for whatever they were working on.
Okay, that's interesting.
But then, being the only designer on the team, anything to do with the digital interface of how this experiment is going to work. Okay, you built the setup, but then what does the person see on the screen, on the phone, or the mobile, or like a magic mirror, or a HoloLens?
Got it. So like what HoloLens and that I think 2000.
Oh yes, I take super pride in the fact that I was working on HoloLens.
I was working on HoloLens.
Exactly. So I've been fortunate. I mean, I've had that experience. It was all organic. I had no idea what these things meant. So something somewhere went right. And I would say that the past few years, just they went in a very nice way. I got exposure to a lot of things, and not that I did not stick to it. One way could have been sticking to something and going the distance. The good thing that happened was I got enough exposure, and that put me in a place to now finally decide what I want to do, or pick and choose out of 2, 3, 4 opportunities. So now if there's something at work, I don't have expertise, but I have enough context to contribute, which makes me happy at the end of the day.
Yeah, because now since you're the design lead at Frog, and I think it's one of the longest stints that you've had, 4.5 years.
Yes.
So how's work now? How is it? What are you doing right now? And just more light onto it.
So again, being of the consulting nature, there's no particular domain. So right now I'm working in healthcare. Previously it was warehousing and logistic management. There's been banking. There's been all sorts of work that's happened. In terms of what we do, or what I do rather, it started with being like a designer on board for a project. So I was looking at customer journeys, user flows,
right,
putting in a bit of visual design language, UI per se, looking at usability, doing a lot of design research. So a lot of hands-on work.
Got it.
The best part again here has been that the role was not specific only to production work or research work or something.
And it's more hands-on and more...
It's more hands-on and it's more holistic. So through 2 or 3 or 4 projects, whatever I've done, I've actually done multiple things. I've been on a project as a researcher. I've been on a project as a production guy who's just churning out screens day in, day out. I have done first-hand usability testing.
Wow.
And that's probably one reason which has made me stay. You said it's the longest stint. So yes, it is 4+ years, because I have never gotten bored of doing the same thing. Now the role has transformed more into a manager kind of a role. So it's now slightly lesser of hands-on work.
But yes, the journey.
Yeah, but it's great because now there's more sort of client interaction. There's a more strategic involvement. There's decision making. There's also team management which comes. So again, things have moved organically in that way. And like I said, in the bigger picture of 10 years, I've had different experiences. Now, within the last 4 years, within this micro environment, also the experiences have changed.
So you've worked across different sectors, different industries, different kind of projects, right? And designing different products cater to different audiences. You've been an industrial designer, you've been at innovation labs. Now you've been dealing with enterprises who designing in banking, healthcare, or whatever sector that you use, that you may say. What do you think is actually the definition of a good designed product? With how does that definition is common across different sectors and different industries to you?
See, if you were to Google up or look at a book, you find 10,000 definitions, and I think all of them are true. If someone were to ask me, I would say that I aspire to create or build or make something where once it goes into the end person's hands, they do not need anybody else to tell them what to do with it. You can have a business definition to it. You can have like a human-centric, customer-centric definition to it. But I think it all comes down to the point of saying that, okay, if I design something for you or, for a particular person or a user base, and I hand it over to them, they should not have to depend on anybody in the world to explain what it does, why it does that, what all can it do, what can it not do, anything and everything. There should be no question.
Absolutely.
In an ideal world, that's what should happen. I don't think it ever happens.
It never happens. Sometimes
and it's
developers
okay.
don't even, developers don't even understand what that is.
No, it's not just the developer. It's everybody.
It's everybody, right?
Like if I'm working in a team and I create something which I feel in my head is perfect and flawless, my teammate might just shoot it down with good reason. It's like science. I mean, I remember I hated chemistry in school. So the reason I hated chemistry was because when we study chemistry, everything is in ideal conditions.
Right.
So, there's this constant and that constant, and you apply it when, the pressure and temperature is all of that. But in the real world, that doesn't happen. So,
absolutely.
So, when I studied, I was comfortable. When I went and wrote an exam and they said that, okay, this is not ideal conditions, I forgot everything. So that's how things are, right? So you want to design something for an ideal situation. You want to design something for a non-ideal situation, but you can reach like a 95, 96, 97%.
Right. Absolutely.
I don't know if there's a 100% product in the world.
Absolutely.
So yeah, good design is something which does not need help or assistance.
Yeah, that's amazing. So now you've spent close to a decade in design. As a designer, everybody talks about hard skills, about when it comes to UI design, usability testing, or information architecture, or Figma skills. What are some soft skills that you think that are really important to be a designer? Because I really think it's a designer's job is to actually understand people and then create solutions, and also working with a team. So what soft skills do you think are really important which have worked out?
Just communication, internal, external, with anybody. So all these things you said, right? So user research, usability testing, building architectures, doing customer mapping, talking to your team, pushing a concept, anything and everything. There's one soft skill which is important throughout is communication. If you can talk, if you can ask, if you can answer, even if you don't know an answer to something, if you can communicate clearly that this is something I don't know, I'm willing to know more, I want to know more, etc. All those kinds of things. So I think if you're a good communicator, and it doesn't have to be verbal, it can be written, it can be pictorial, it can be gestures, anything. If you're able to put your point across and at the same time also understand anybody and everybody's point of view,
right?
I think that's all it takes.
Absolutely.
Because you can be you can be good at listening, but if you're not a good communicator, what you hear makes no sense.
It's more about that you might have a great idea, but if you cannot explain or communicate that idea to people,
it's as basic as that. Absolutely. It's very simple.
Right. So, in the start of the conversation, you described that design, is still design has only been into urban centers, but it has expanded into India as a rule, and about awareness. How was it then before, and what do you see the difference a decade later? Like, because I see that design as a role has been, number of UX design jobs have been really increasing. Product design jobs have been increasing. Startups have popped up creating more products. They need people who want to create experiences with delight customers. So there's that demand. But because you've seen it across the whole decade, how do you think that role has actually expanded in terms of number of jobs, maybe pay scale, or maybe also access to education, which I actually feel.
Right.
So how has that changed for the decade since you've been watching this industry?
So I think access to education, maybe the first aspect is more, I would maybe like to think that it's more around demand and supply, which then, goes back that, of course, like you said, jobs, industry, and, people want designers. If you look at it now, I think, all big design firms and agencies of the world have now been acquired by these corporate giants because everybody wants a capability.
Right.
Which means that the world needs more, designers. And yes, that's why the education institutes, because now they know that people want to learn this skill, people want to learn this profession. So how you need to study to be a doctor or an engineer. You want to study for design, get a job as a designer, and education, and the institutions would run, the industry would run. Now, overall, I think there is definitely a more, in essence, there's more democratization. So, 10 years, 15 years ago, design was a very small community. There were people, now also, you would say that, this person comes with a skill, design skill or a background, and that's it. But it's just larger. So more people have a say in it. Design was always happening, right?
Design was always happening.
I think 10, 15 years ago, and which I'm going 10, 15 only because that's when I started. Even 50 years ago, somebody was designing things. That person was not a designer. That person was an engineer. The person was a businessman. So a businessman of, the 50s, 60s would typically now be like a strategy consultant because they know how to make a business grow, or they know what's right. If I want to, take a product or a service to the market, then who's the user? Why should I do it? What should be the roadmap? How do I grow? Now you would hire like a strategy guy for it, and strategic design is a thing. A few decades ago, there was one person who was like the founder of a company who was doing all of that.
That's right.
So it doesn't mean that this person can't do it today. I think it's just more around streamlining that, okay, I can't do everything. Like, a founder of a company, I can't do everything. I have the ideas, but I need somebody who's going to put in more time and more focus around that so that I can concentrate on 2-3 other things. So in that sense, I would say maybe democratization is not the right word, but it has spread across a larger set of people. So there are more people who would learn the skill of doing something, who would learn the skill of implementation, who are a part or who's a decision maker when you talk about design. There's this whole understanding that when we talk about stakeholders in design, so it's not just the person who sits and sketches or draws ideas. It's the engineer who's going to build it. It's the guy with the money who's going to sponsor it.
It's the sales guy who's going to sell it.
So that way, I think, that's what has changed in my decade. And that's like a very small amount of time. If we talk to somebody who's been working for 20, 30 years, they'll bring more perspective to it. But yeah, on a smaller scale of 8 to 10 years, I think that's what we are looking at. And overall, because there's more participation from people, the one thing that definitely stands out is that people also start respecting, the label or the tag or the profession more, because nobody really understood, 10 years ago that what it takes to get something done or to create something. There was an elite angle to it that, oh my God, these guys are designer.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was also the whole notion of, a designer sits and draws or sketches. I've heard this from people that
absolutely
to drawing hi banana hai, which is okay. But now that more people are part of it, now there's an engineer who has to implement what you do. There's a guy who has to go out and sell. So now there's more empathy, there's more understanding of, okay, what a designer does is not just sit and draw. There's a lot of thought that goes into it. There's a process to it. And because of that, the general sort of respect for the profession,
it's been a more practical or viable career now.
Yeah, it's visible.
It
was always there. Like I said, I don't want to take that whole negative approach of saying कि पहले respect नहीं होता था, अब होता है.
But it's more kind of, I think it has more visibility. More people are actually aware about it.
Yeah.
And stuff. How do you think, as talking in terms of pay scale, or anything that the pay scale over the years has also expanded because of more number of roles and it has skyrocketed? What do you think about pay scales of designers in India?
It's a very tricky question to answer and going on record. There's been a good and bad aspect to it.
Right.
Again, good aspect is that because there's more visibility, there's more respect, there's more value. It now pays better than what it used to probably at some point of time. The bad side of it, however, or let's not call it bad, like the upsetting side of it, however, is because right now there is so much demand for building design capability, it has also sort of disrupted the whole structure. Companies, they want people.
Right?
So because you want to build a capability, you will bring in somebody at a disrupted pay scale. Because you really want to have that person. So, if the market was going at 10, you would suddenly offer 15 and say that, okay, I want you, just come in now.
Got it.
So it sort of disrupts, but then I think, now we know for the past few months and maybe the year to come, there's corrections happening.
Corrections happening, because I also feel that had been happening in tech since past few years now, because a lot of venture capital money actually flooded into startups, and startups which had venture capital, they were just throwing money like crazy in crazy amounts to just hire people off, and there've been now layoffs of those people.
Right.
So how has design, like, I know about technology, how has design as role which is being affected in mass layoffs, like how's it happening?